an opportunity to go down and see the monarch butterflies in Mexico, and that's what we're going to be hearing about tonight. So, Kate, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Susan. And thank you to the club, my home club, for inviting me to do this presentation. I will now share my screen and see if this works. Moment of truth. Is that good? Do you see the slide?
Yeah, I think you're good, Kate. You're on full screen. Everything looks good.
Oh, that's good. This is the thing that has most worried me, the whole technical aspect of it. So anyhow, just a minute. I'm just going to move a couple of things. So memeguan is the Ojibwe word for butterfly. Danas plexipus is the scientific name for the monarch butterfly. And this is a creature that captures our imagination. It's so beautiful, graceful, tough, complex, determined, heroic, mysterious. Just keep adding on the adjectives. It's a wonderful little creature. This presentation is about a trip I took exactly a year ago to the monarch's wintering grounds with Ellen Hartwick. Some of you will know her, some of the Field Naturalist club members, because Ellen worked with a number of us as a field worker in Bob Bowles' biological inventory. She lived south of Weybridge, but she since has moved to Prince Edward County. My heartfelt thanks to Ellen, because she had the idea of this trip. She invited me and she did much of the organizing. This presentation will cover 4 aspects of the story. First, some of the science. Second, our time at the butterfly reserves. Third, what we can do for the monarch here in Ontario. And finally, where things stand now in Mexico. So here are some vital stats. This insect weighs 0.5 gram. It has a wingspan on average of about 1 centimeter. These are the life stages, egg to adult, 30 days. The female lays 100 to 300 eggs. Generally, she lays 1 egg per milkweed. And because of that, she's more likely to lay in a group of plants than in one isolated plant. So if you're planting milkweed, plant more than 1. When the caterpillar hatches, it eats the eggshell and then it gets to work on the plant. It goes through 5 instars, shedding its skin each time and generally eating the skin. And the lifespan is 2 to 6 weeks for the first few generations, and then up to 9 months for the generation that migrates back to Mexico. So that's usually about the 5th generation from up here. So this is the trip. From Elmville to Macheros was 4,635 kilometers, according to Google. This is the longest insect migration in the world. There are migrants that travel farther, like the Arctic tern, which has the record, from the Arctic to the Antarctic, which is 70,000 plus kilometers. My internet connection is unstable, I'm told. Hopefully it will hold. None of these migrants travel in such numbers. 1 billion was the estimate at one stage in recent years. Right now, the estimated number for the last winter season is about 150 million. This is the area of the South Sierra Madre Mountains that the butterflies funnel into. They battle adverse winds, storms, drought, nectar scarcity, pesticide spraying, vehicle collisions. And within that mountain range, they're aiming for a very small area relatively that spans 2 states within Mexico, the state of Michoacan and the state of Mexico. And just to give you a sense of the size, that's 56,000 hectares, which is a little bit bigger than Springwater Township. But Springwater has a population of around 20,000 people. I'm not sure what the MBBR population is now, but about 12 years ago, it was estimated at 100,000 residents. So this is a busy area. Most of the residents are poor, very poor. They rely on agriculture and forestry for their subsistence living. And much of the MPFN does not belong, in our understanding of land ownership, to the Mexican government, nor to any individual or corporation. It's owned communally by the people in a variety of dispersed settlements under the ejido system of land reform that was introduced, first introduced after the Mexican Revolution in 1910. Chris, could you get me a glass of water? Sorry, I'm drying up. So these are some of the key locations within the biosphere that I will be visiting with you on this presentation. So where we were going to was Cerro Pelon, and Matchedash is at the base of the entrance to the Butterfly Reserve at Cerro Pelon. And Zitácuaro is the town. Everything goes through Zitácuaro. So to get to the reserves further north, we went to Sierra Chinquarapie, Anguangueo, which is here, and El Rosario, which is here. We always had to go through Zitácuaro. So the monarchs spread out over the entire continent. And just to remind you, this is, how much is it? It's 100 million hectares. And they funnel down into this tiny area. They funnel into their colonies within the Biosphere Reserve. And the colonies actually cover less than 20 hectares. And the reason that the Biosphere Reserve covers 56,000 hectares is that the colonies move around. The butterflies do show site and fidelity to a specific tree, but they do move according to, well, we don't really know what, and they sometimes even move in mid-season. This was my trip. While the monarch's journey is fraught with peril, ours was merely tiring. We went by taxi on the Monday to Pearson Airport. We stayed overnight at a motel, and then we caught a really early Air Mexico flight down to Mexico City. When we got to Mexico City, we took another taxi from Mexico, the bus terminal, from the airport to the bus terminal. And despite our lack of Spanish and not dealing with anyone who spoke English after we left the airport, we were able to navigate our way through the terminal, finding the right counter to buy a ticket, finding where the bus was waiting, finding change for the toilet. You have to pay for every toilet. And when we got to Zitácuaro, I didn't have any change left. And I was fussing, and a passing gentleman gave me a coin. Everybody was so kind and so nice. So the bus took us from Mexico City to Zitácuaro, and from there we had to take a taxi up to Matchedash. And we arrived at the bed and breakfast late afternoon on Tuesday. And we discovered we were in the company of some very distinguished visitors, a group of butterfly scientists from Emory University in Georgia. And they were planning to do a session that very evening on their work. They were so very excited. This is is an avocado tree, and that is a stem shrub, very popular with hummingbirds. So this is our gathering in the evening with the scientists. There were 5 or 6 of them, and then there were half a dozen interested bed and breakfast guests. And this is Jacques Deroute, who is the team leader. And he explained his research on a parasite called Ophriocysis electrocera, which we call OE to make life simpler for us all. And this is a parasite that infects and weakens the caterpillars. but the spores are spread by adults. And this is the best popular science book I found on the subject of milkweed and monarchs. Anurag Agrawal is a professor in environmental studies at Cornell University. And the quote that I put there from the book explains the significance of Jap's research, which is that the butterflies medicate when they have the OE infection, but they don't medicate themselves. They medicate their offspring by laying their eggs on the more toxic varieties of milkweed. And if you want to hear Jap explain his research, you can Google this TED talk. One thing we did learn from his talk in Matchedash is that among the monarchs that breed here in Ontario, there's a much lower proportion of OE infection than in more southerly areas. And this is because our milkweed dies back every year and the spores don't overwinter. And Jap warns against planting milkweed that is not native to your area. And the highest levels of infection, by the way, are found in the monarchs from commercial breeders who sell to the wedding market and to other events. The Emory scientists are the latest in a long line of researchers probing the many mysteries that are raised by the monarch. And this is one of the preeminent ones, Lincoln Bra, entomologist, ecologist. He was a pioneer in the 1950s in what was then the new study, a new field of chemical ecology, which is the study of chemical interactions between organisms and their environment. And he did a series of experiments that established, he was the first to establish that the reason the monarchs were distasteful to many predators was because of the toxins they ingest from the milkweed that is the only plant that caterpillars recognize as food. And Bra proved his point by getting young naive blue jays, because older ones knew better, but he got these young ones to catch and eat monarch butterflies. And then there you can see the result, the naive blue jay learning a life lesson. And if you want to read more about that, Google barfing blue jay. Over 6 decades, until he died in 2018, Brower undertook countless studies into aspects of modern monarch biology, and he also played a leading role in getting first Mexican government and then UNESCO protection for the wintering grounds. Plants don't want to be eaten, so they arm themselves with a variety of defenses, and monarchs and a few other insects have evolved to consume the foliage of this specific plant and not be adversely affected by the toxins. But the milkweed has another defense in its arsenal, the latex sap that runs through the leaves. A recent study found 60% of caterpillars drown in the first burst of latex that results from their first bites into the leaf. So it's a highly effective plant defense. But some caterpillars are ahead of the game. They notch the leaf close to the stem. And so the leaf droops down and wilts a little, and that reduces the latex flow and there's no drowning. So if you see a caterpillar on a wilted leaf, it's intentional. This is Canadian zoologist Fred Urquhart and his wife Norah, another very influential couple in the history of monarch science. They worked with the Royal Ontario Museum in the 1950s, starting in the 1950s, and developed a tagging program that launched a continent-wide citizen science project. And the goal was to find out where the monarchs went for the winter. No one in North America knew. The trail petered out in Texas. In 1973, Norah had the idea of writing to newspapers in Mexico City, asking for volunteers to report sightings and help with tagging. So an American naturalist called Kenneth Brugger responded, and he started searching, assisted by his wife, Catalina, or Trail. And on January the 9th, 1975, he phoned the Urquharts and he said, we found the colony, we found millions of monarchs in evergreens beside a mountain clearing. So the Urquharts kept the news under wraps. They didn't get to the site until a year later. That was January 1976. And the world didn't learn of the momentous discovery until August 1976, when the National Geographic published this article by Fred Urquhart. And its cover page showed Catalina Trail at Cerro Pelon, festooned with butterflies. The article was vague as to the exact location, and Urquhart just referred to it as a certain area. Of course, the notion that this was a discovery was news to the Mexicans. They always knew that the butterflies arrived on the days of the dead, October 30th, November 1st and 2nd. But for North America, this was the big reveal. Other scientists in the field were keen to pursue their studies at the overwintering grounds. Chief among them was the preeminent Lincoln Brower. But Urquhart refused to tell him the location. Despite Urquhart's lack of collegiality, Brower was able to figure out where the colonies were and arrived at Sierra Cinque in January 1977, where fortuitously he came across the Urquharts tagging butterflies. And there's a photograph at the moment. That is it from Anurag Agrawal's book, with Urquhart looking up at Brower and clearly not delighted to see him. By one account, Brower held out his hand and Urquhart refused to take it. Brower wrote subsequently, "The Urquharts were bewildered by our arrival and initially treated us rudely and then with hostility." Nevertheless, the Urquharts can be credited with trailblazing work in citizen science. And their work was picked up in 1992 by Chip Taylor at the University of Kansas, who now leads an army of volunteers at Monarch Watch. It was no accident that we came across these scientists at JM Butterfly B&B. What's happening there is far more than butterfly tourism. And that's because of the unique husband and wife team of Joel Moreno and Ellen Sharp. Joel's father was one of 3 men from Macheros who was hired as forest rangers after the butterflies sanctuaries were established. And the steady paycheck pulled the Moreno family out of poverty. And out of 10 children, 4 became college graduates and several traveled to the US to work. Ellen grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, and she has a PhD in sociocultural anthropology from UCLA. She met Joel on a trip to butterfly country in 2011. Love ensued, and then she moved in 2013, and that's when they started the B&B. And that was also the start of another way for the community around the base of Perro Ceylon to make a living without destroying the monarch habitat. And the partnership of these 2 people is a marriage made in heaven, in a way, for the butterflies, because Joel has family and business networks that extend right through the biosphere region. So nothing happens that doesn't get back to him. And Ellen is super connected academically. And when she needs to get the word out, that happens. Joel is a builder, and so there have been continual extensions and improvements because the business has been successful, and there was one building and then another building and another building, and then there's a pool and a meeting place, on the side of his family's home. And the business means that instead of visitors being brought in just for the day by a tour bus with all the money going to the company back in Mexico City, people would actually come and spend a few days at the B&B, spend money here, at least on food, because there's not much else to buy. I wanted to buy postcards and postage stamps, so forget it. But nevertheless, there has a few little cottage industries have sprung up, and so that has helped. Nevertheless, logging continued. 1 tree at a time, cut with an axe, dragged down the trail by horse. If memory serves me correctly, a log like this fetches about $20, the equivalent of $20. And the result eventually is a degraded forest. There will be a tipping point, and the butterflies will cease to enjoy the protective microclimate of the Oyamel forest canopy. And it's not for us to judge, because here in Simcoe County, the equivalent is predatory development. One piece of wetland here, a little bit of forest there, and ecosystem resilience is lost, biodiversity is lost, and we know where our next meal is coming from, but we allow the same thing to happen. To counter this in Mexico, Joel and Ellen decided to seek help from the people outside who care about preserving the natural wonder of the monarch migration. They started a nonprofit charity, Butterflies and Their People. And for decades, there had only been the 3 rangers guarding the Cerro Pelon sanctuary. Joel's father, who then passed his job on to Patricio, who is Joel's brother, and then 2 others. Butterflies and Their People raised enough money to hire 3 forest guardians in 2017, and they added 1 every year since then. So at present, there are 6 forest guardians, and illegal logging declined dramatically since 2017, they say. This is one of the side benefits of being up there. The tags that Monarch Watch put on drop off, or they're found on dead butterflies. The butterflies die by the thousands down there. And so people find them, and if they send them back to Monarch Watch, they get $5. And here we have forest guardian Francesco Moreno, photographed last spring. He had about 20 little tags, so that would be a nice bonus for him at the end of the season. The butterfly B&B was not typical of buildings in Macheros. This is the way people live, and usually there's livestock by every home. Often a horse or 2, or a few sheep, some turkeys, guinea fowl. Ellen and I explored on our second day. We knew we weren't going to start climbing mountains right away because of the altitude. And I must say that I found it hard, even walking on relatively flat ground in the village. As soon as the road went up a slight incline, I found myself out of breath. So I was a little bit worried. So this was Thursday, this was showtime, and that's Cesar and Alassane, my horse. So we met them, and we got on our horses, and off we went. And there's Ellen with her handler. And the forest was interesting and lovely. The tree, the Oyamel fir, is the same family as our balsam fir, and the young trees look just like balsam firs, but the Oyamel grows much taller, and the branches, the lower branches, drop off the trunk. There were all sorts of interesting plants in the undergrowth, and the paths were clear of all the garbage that unfortunately we found on the other paths we walked on Wednesday. And that's because the forest guardians kept everything pristine and clear. This was a meadow halfway up the climb, and this is there's a horse there, one of the forest guardians' horses grazing. And there were just 4 of us on this trip, myself, Ellen, and then a young couple, a young American couple. So I was looking back here and you could see them coming up. But that comfortable ride soon came to an end, and we had the path got too steep for the horses, and we were told to dismount, we would have to walk. And Ellen told us before we left that to get to the top once we were on foot would take some people 20 minutes, some people an hour. Well, I lasted about 5 minutes and I felt absolutely done, out of breath, and my heart was racing, and I stopped and leaned against the tree, and I was really embarrassed. And I told her, Rogelio, our guide, that I'm really quite fit, but I am old. I told him my age, and he said, no, he said, I thought you were 43. And so that cheered me up quite a bit. And he cut me a couple of walking sticks, and I carried on. But then after a few more minutes, I had to stop. I just couldn't do it, I said to him. And he said, don't worry. And he summoned up César and Catalune, and I got a ride a little bit further up. The rest of the party was climbing, including Ellen. She was doing fine. She did drop her backpack and Rogelio picked it up. But then we got to the point where I had to get off and I had to walk the last stretch. And with frequent stops and encouraging words, I finally made it and arrived at the colony location. And silencio was the word on the sign. Talking is discouraged in any of the reserves, so as not to disturb the butterflies. It takes me some time to catch my breath and look around, but I kind of notice that the forest feels almost like a cathedral. Where are they? And slowly my eyes adjust and I see them. And on this photograph, you can see little flecks of orange high up. And my camera lens takes me closer. And others can hear the rustling of the wings. I'm a bit deaf and I didn't have any hearing aids at that stage, so I didn't hear that. But that is a sound that makes the whole experience even more magical. And there were a few monarchs around us, somewhat the worse for wear. They had crossed the continent. We visited close to the start of the migration. So the peak, when the weather starts to warm and the monarchs start coming out of diapause and preparing to mate, is January to March. So the numbers in my pictures are not as great as those you would see on the internet. Just a minute. The time eventually came for us to go down. We went down and found a flat area and had lunch. This is the B&B did delicious packed lunches. And this is Shelby from Portland, Maine, and her boyfriend, Jose, from New Mexico. And they were the ones who irritatingly bounded up the slope as if it was absolutely no problem at all. But I'd recovered, and going downhill is much, much easier. And I was quite excited by discovering these giant lupins, exactly the same as the ones that grow here, except 3 or 4 times the size. So Ellen and I took pictures of each other in front of the lupins. And that was Sarah Pillon. The next day we go to El Rosario, which is here. So on the way going down the side of the mountain, we saw avocado seedlings. That is a major industry and a threat to the forest that is cleared to plant the avocado. And then around Ziticuaro, oops, I'm going the wrong way. Around Ziticuaro, where there are flatlands, it's poinsettias. There was hoophouse after hoophouse of poinsettias. This was the beginning of the Christmas season. So here I am preparing to set off the mountain, Rosario. So I didn't keep all the pictures I took of the crowds at Rosario. It's not at all the same as Pero Salon. It's very commercial. There are huge parking lots. There were dozens of tour buses, tons of people, souvenir shops. It was a completely different experience. The path was wider and not as rocky and steep as at Pero Salon. And I had learned to pace myself. As I saw other elderly Mexican women do, we'd kind of nod at each other in sympathy as we stopped to sit on a stump and catch our breath and then carry on. On my way up, I saw monarchs, a whole lot of them paddling. And I thought of asking to get off and take a picture, but it would have been a bit of business getting back on, so I didn't. And then I didn't get the picture because it didn't happen again. So I took this off the internet. It is a photograph from El Rosario. So that's a lesson. If you see paddling monarchs on the side of the mountain, dismount and make sure you get the picture. This was the top of the path at El Rosario. It was crowded. The butterflies were just as lovely, however, as they were at Cerro Pilon, but my pictures were more or less the same. So back down the mountain. Here you see Oyamel seedlings. World Wildlife Fund Mexico has a privileged position in the Monarch Butterfly Biosphere Reserve, and they control the research. Citizen science is not allowed, and even prominent scientists have a hard time getting a look in. When we met the guys from Emory, they were at the reserves as visitors. They had not been able to get permits to do any research. On our way back, we stopped at a pulqueria. We liked it so much that we actually stopped on our way back the next day from Sierra Cinque too. Pulque is the local beverage. It's made from a cactus, the maguey, which is not to be confused with the smaller spikier agave, which is used to make tequila. The flower stem of this cactus is cut before it flowers, and then a sweet liquid called agua miel, honey water, gathers in the hollowed heart of the plant, and it's fermented to produce the pulque. And it's delicious. Here's myself and Ellen having a glass. This was pineapple flavored, and then the next day I had plain, which I thought was a whole lot better actually. It was a little bit drier and sort of a bit like champagne. Anyhow, I highly recommend it. And then the next day we left for Sierra Cinque, which is further north from El Rosario, and here is Angangueo. So we went from, and all our trips were organized by the Ben Breakfast, and the same guide, Rogelio, was our guide for all the trips. And so Ziticuaro and then up. Angangueo was very interesting. Large deposits of gold, silver and copper were found there in the late 18th century, and the town was founded in 1792. And you can see on the left, there's a lovely old church. If I did another visit, I would certainly try to spend a night or two here. There is a hotel. In 2010, Angangueo was the site of a disaster. There was a landslide in which 1,000 people lost their homes, and 30 people died. It was deforestation from both legal and illegal logging, which contributed to the landslides, as well as cleared areas on hillsides being used to build homes. Sierra Cinque was busy too. I didn't keep the photos to show that, but souvenir shops, and they had a restaurant as well, and parking lots filled with buses. We rode up on horseback the first half of the way, and then we walked. Walking was still hard, but I was learning to manage it. And the path was very narrow and it was crowded. We weren't allowed to linger. The Butterfly Reserve Police would move us on if we stopped for too long. But the view of the valley below was spectacular, and the views of the butterflies were too, because the path at Sierra Cinque takes you up level and above the tops of the trees. And you can see the people here. Ken, we thought we'd try a video here. So I didn't shoot very many videos. I wasn't used to doing that, and one that Ken's going to show you is shot with my cell phone, I think. So.
Okay, Kate, so can you hear me, Kate? Remember, you're going to stop sharing your screen now.
Yeah, I stopped. Oh, sorry, I'm still screen sharing.
Yeah, you have to stop.
Stop share. Okay, done it.
And now I'm going to try to share my screen. Here we are. And where's the full screen here? Let me see. Okay, and I'll press play and see what happens. How's it showing?
It's good. That looks fine. Thanks, Ken.
Just gonna check one thing here. Yep, it's on slow motion.
Okay, well, it was only short. It was only a couple of minutes, but that gives you an idea of really something that the photographs don't capture. And this was the beginning of the season, remember? So there aren't as many monarchs in the air as you would get in February. So it was quite amazing.
It's a short, it's kind of running a loop here, but it's beautiful to watch. You might as well watch it for a second, Kate. Funny, they seem to fly at different speeds, some of them. Maybe one more time through. What are they doing when they fly like this, Kate? Are they, they're not feeding, are they just,
There is some feeding going on, but they're in diapause, so which is a semi-hibernation. And that's what they go down to. They need that condition for the winter. And they emerge on warm days, and as the day heats up, they emerge and fly around a little. There are some plants they can nectar on. They don't do very much, is my understanding, and not until later in the year. But kind of like, anyhow, they do come out of, they're in semi-hibernation.
so should I turn the screen back over to you now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. And you can start sharing your screen again now. And go full screen.
Okay.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. So here's one final shot from Sierra Cinque. And that's the end of my report from the trips to the butterfly reserves. But we were there 6 days. Other things, of course, there was bird watching. We didn't build up a huge list, but these are some of the birds we saw. And I took a few pictures under the Callistemon shrub. It's a bottlebush shrub that is actually endemic to Australia, but it's been spread throughout the world where it grows in temperate regions. It's obviously got great horticultural value. This is a white-eared hummingbird. And then I got a picture of a Rivoli's hummingbird that I understand used to be called the magnificent hummingbird, but got renamed. And that's a vermilion flycatcher. And here was my favorite, the cinnamon-bellied flower piercer, which has a lovely blue back and cinnamon-colored breast, and was quite difficult to take pictures because it was quite shy and kept hiding behind leaves and turning its back. And then there was a bird here I didn't identify, but very friendly. So we didn't really do our duty in the bird watching department. We did have other important duties, such as sitting out with a glass of wine, watching sunsets. And we also, we did quite a lot of exploring. I did a ride around the surrounding countryside. We visited local craftspeople. We learned how to make salsa verde, the traditional way, which is really hard. And when the time came for us to leave, we had met wonderful and interesting people, and the experience of being in the Oyamel forest with the butterflies was life-changing. So the next section of this tour deals with how we welcome the monarchs when they leave their wintering grounds and come north. And this is my monarch way station home in Elmvale. The monarchs need to know to stop where to stop, so the welcome sign goes out every June. I have nectar plants there. There's a school of thought that you should plant your host plant, the milkweed, separate from the nectaring plants. And this is because all sorts of, because the eggs and the caterpillars are prey to wasps and spiders. And so the idea is that maybe you try and keep them away from all the mixture of plants that attracts a wide variety of predators. If you have a Monarch way station, you get to see your name in print on the Monarch Watch website. Here I am, number 2877. There's now about 35,000 way stations around across North America. And just a few notes on what butterflies need when they come back. Milkweed is the only plant they can use for reproduction, and the most often encountered here in central Ontario are common milkweed, which is this one, swamp milkweed, and this is butterfly milkweed, which is a terrific garden plant, a brilliant orange, very well worth planting. This is a very useful resource, the Ontario Wildflowers website, if you want to find out about any particular plant. And he has, he has a list of milkweeds that are native to this province, 10 of them. And another useful resource that I use a lot is the US Department of Agriculture plant profile. If you type into Google the name of the plant, either in Latin or in its common name, and then USDA map afterwards, you get this map, which will show you where it's native to and if our area is included. So that's really useful for checking out where plants come from. And these are some of the nectar plants that monarchs need. Because while the host plant, the milkweeds provide foliage for the caterpillars, the butterflies, the adults, also need to eat, and they don't eat leaves. And the milkweeds are in flower only from mid-June to mid-August. The common milkweed coming first and the butterfly weed last. And so they need other forms of nectar. So in spring, these are good native plants that are sources of nectar. We don't see many monarchs until June. And so these are really the plants that you need to have for the monarchs. And then most important is to feed the monarchs for their fall migration. And the asters and the goldenrods are the most useful. This is a monarch ovipositing on the underside of a common milkweed leaf. And it's curious to think that our experience of the monarchs is so different from the one they have down in Mexico, because they just don't see the eggs, the caterpillars, the chrysalis, the emergence. And of course, we have no idea of the IML fir forests and the roosts and the mating and the traveling north. This is the jaw-like chrysalis. The caterpillar often leaves the milkweed where it's been feeding and travels quite a distance to put it to build its chrysalis, to pupate on a different plant or even a structure. And this, I understand, is to foil the attention of predators. These are monarchs on ironweed in my garden, September the 2nd, 2020. And now for the last part of this presentation, how are the monarchs doing? Well, unfortunately, not great. So this is a information released by World Wildlife Fund Mexico. They released this one in March 2020, and it indicated a population decrease of 53% since the previous season. The way they count is by measuring the area covered by the colonies. And in 2018, 2019, it was 15 acres, and last year it was 7 acres, which is supposed to translate to about 150 million butterflies. And there are all sorts of factors that are thought to contribute to the decline, but some of them are human-made. And so a month after we got back, in January 2020, Homero Gomez Gonzalez, the head administrator of the El Rosario Butterfly Reserve, disappeared, and his body was found floating 2 weeks later, floating in a nearby well, in a nearby town, in a well. And then a few days after that, the body of a butterfly reserve tour guide was discovered in the same area. And I have not seen any reports of any further information as to who was responsible, what happened. I have asked and not received answers. And I don't think there's a simple story here. Many reports in Western media portrayed this as attacks on heroic environmentalists. I get the feeling that there were actually many more complex factors at work, and Gomez was playing a tricky role in balancing various economic interests. And shortly after he died, a Voice of America reporter went to Michoacan, and she quite quickly came across evidence of illegal logging and reported that in this place of beauty, there was an underside of lawlessness, corruption, and poverty, which is not something, of course, that Ellen and I saw. I mean, we saw poverty, but we didn't see any of this. And then meanwhile, back at Macheros came the news in mid-October that Perro Chalon was going to close. And that's disastrous for Ellen and Joel, who had already made plans and taken bookings to reopen in November with pandemic protocols in place. And so this is an email they sent out. This season, the 4 men who make up our, I don't know quite how to pronounce this, but a Heidel governing board refused to purchase a $21 permit from the Monarch Butterfly Biosphere Reserve because public meetings have been suspended during the pandemic. The community was not consulted on the issue. And when the decision was made, the explanation provided was that this was to stop outsiders from bringing the coronavirus to the community. And I don't know whether there has been any instances of COVID. A couple of months ago, last I saw, there hadn't been. I emailed Ellen recently and haven't heard, so I don't know. And I'm just giving you a little bit more from the email that Ellen sent out to her list, because it really gives you a feel for the conditions on the ground down there. We are concerned about the implication of this decision for the forest health and viability of the monarch migration to Cerro Pelon. Many of our neighbors have been cutting down trees during the off-season, biding their time until work in butterfly tourism returned. Illegal logging of the butterfly sanctuary is likely to increase even more now that local authorities have rejected one of the only environmental sustainable sources of revenue the community had. And here's a freshly harvested tree, picture Ellen took a couple of weeks ago. And her email continued, apart from the 20 people we employed directly with our business, about 150 people worked at the 2 entries to the Cerro Pelon Sanctuary as guides and horse handlers. Each of these workers supported many more people in a close-knit community of 2,000. The 6 butterflies and their people forest guardians have job security for another year if the nonprofit continues to receive donations. And you can't keep these guys down. Joel and Ellen have come up with a great project, Adopt a Colony. If you subscribe, you get very professionally produced virtual updates twice a month, videos and articles, providing migration news, history, whimsy. It's not as great as visiting the colonies in person, but it's still a lovely way of connecting to the butterflies and keeping up to date with what's going on out there. So if you're interested, just Google butterflies and their people. And back here, of course, there's a lot we can do. We can plant milkweed and native nectar plants. We can lobby our various government to manage roadsides and medians for pollinators, as well as parks and any unused land. No pesticides, less mowing. We can pay a price for food that allows the farmer to leave space for the wild. We can lead lifestyles that are mindful of the needs of non-human lives, and this means learning about the needs of our fellow creatures, like these monarchs that are nectaring on flat-topped goldenrod here in Ontario. And perhaps they made their way down here, a tiny insect that links a huge continent. Thank you very much, Miigwech.
Thank you, Kate. I think if you stop sharing your screen again, we'll see your lovely face. And I don't see too many questions on the chat yet, but if anybody has questions, put them in there. But I'm going to, again, I can't unmute people. You have to unmute yourself. But people at this point may want to turn their cameras back on, or if you have a question, and you can shout it out. Let me see, I'm going to go on gallery view myself. So does anybody, I'll maybe start with a question for Kate. Kate, I know you were talking about what we can do here locally, and you talked about roadside maintenance. I know in the last couple of days, I haven't taken action on it yet, but the club has had some communication from some people out in Tay Township, and they've been addressing the council there, trying to get them, instead of I think mowing the roadsides 4 times a year, just to do it once maybe or something. I haven't, I'm going to be sending this out because they're looking for support from the club. But have you yourself got involved with anything in Springwater about roadside, or what's going on down there, or what could be done to change things?
No, I actually, as a member of the MTN Conservation Association board, I have talked to Tiny Township about that, because when we did our BioBlitz every year, it was a huge issue if the roadside had just got mowed and all the bees were gone, because those are really important refuges for every kind of pollinator. And no, so I haven't done anything, and I think we all should start thinking about that. I got an email recently from Gwen Petroman from Barrie about how an appeal to local municipalities to stop mowing. And so we should maybe all consider approaching our own municipalities and talking to them about that.
I know it was kind of fun. You're so involved at Tiny Marsh, but I remember, was it 2 or 3 years ago? You did some education with Rick there, and he got all excited about monarchs, and decided actually not to mow the berms quite as heavily. You recall that, or?
Yeah, we're careful about where we mow. There is a law of milkweed at Tiny Marsh, but people walk the dikes and they like to see the monarchs there. So we rope them off, and the milkweed doesn't get mowed all season. There is an advantage to a bit of mowing, but that gets a bit complicated to explain to a public works official, because the resprouted, if you mow in the middle of the season, say you mowed a third of it, the resprouted foliage is actually quite appealing to the females who are ovipositing later in the season.
So does anybody else have any questions? Don't be shy, just unmute yourself and shout it out.
Yeah, I have a question, Kate. How do you go about getting your butterfly way station certified?
Well, go online and go to the Monarch Watch website. As I remember, you have to download a questionnaire and fill it out and send it back, and send money as well. But then you get your well, I mean, you're not going to get that little. It's actually a really nice metal sign that's in perfect condition after several years. So you pay for that.
Thank you.
Did I hear somebody else? Kate, do you know anything? I know we talk mostly about the migratory monarchs, but there are non-migratory monarchs in other parts of the world. Is that right?
Yeah, there are. And there may well be a non-migratory monarchs in Florida as well, I understand. And but there are monarchs in New Zealand and Australia, I think. There are also monarchs in Spain. I mean, if we lost the migration, this monarch species would not disappear off the face of the earth. But what would disappear is this particularly unique phenomenon of monarchs that do this. It's kind of like, it's just an amazing way in which they use the resources that are at their disposal by coming up here. And I think there are advantages for them to migrate in terms of escaping disease and making, selecting for a stronger population and so on. But it certainly is something very wonderful for us to be part of.
Kate, I've got a question for you. What is the attrition rate of monarchs between leaving here and getting there?
Sorry, what did?
What is the attrition rate between monarchs leaving here and getting there? Do we know what it is?
I don't think we do know. No. But we know that it is considerable because often the evidence of that is, you know, there are often events where monarchs fly through clouds of pesticide because some municipality has decided to spray for mosquitoes, and then you have people very distressed because there are monarchs dropping out of the sky by the thousands. The mortality as they funnel down through Texas is huge. Part of it is scarcity of nectaring plants due to agricultural practices and so on. Part of it is just traffic. They get hit by cars and trucks, and it's significant. But I don't think anybody has a handle on exactly how many are lost.
I have a question, Kate. Were you actually suffering from altitude sickness when you're trying to climb that mountain and having such difficulty? And would a medication have helped you out there, do you think? Or was it just this lack of oxygen, was you just couldn't get enough oxygen?
So I did take whatever it is you take when you go on an airplane and so on. I took some medication with me, but I didn't use it. I'm sure it was just the depleted oxygen in the air weakens you, and you definitely don't have the strength that you have normally. And as I said, after 3 days, I was getting better at managing it, and I was probably getting more comfortable with the oxygen levels. So I'm sure it's something you could get used to, but I could see from Shelby and Jose that younger people had an easier time.
What time of day were they taking you up there? Like, is it better in the morning or the afternoon, or just view these?
We'd go in the middle of the day because I think that's the best time to go when it's warmest. That's when the monarchs are likely to be most active. On a cold day, they won't move, and on a wet day, they won't be moving. So we were lucky with the weather, and each day we were there got a little bit warmer. So I've watched a couple of I've subscribed to the updates from the butterflies and their people, and there's some concern right now down there because the monarchs are much more active than they should be at this time of year. So the thought is maybe it's because it's a bit warmer, or maybe it's because the forest canopy is a little bit more open. So I'm waiting to learn more about that, but I've noticed that this is an issue. Why are they so active right now?
Of course, some people say going down a mountain is harder than coming up. Did you find that? And there's no big reward at the end when you're going down either.
I found it was easier. An actually easy, but I found it a bit easier. I think when you're going up, you're pulling up the weight of your body, and that's significant.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Kate. I'm sure we all found that it was like going on the trip ourselves. It was great. I think if people hang in there, we're going to have Dave Shanley come in and tell us a bit about the Christmas bird count. But when that's all done, Kate has another video, a short video about the monarchs, and we'll kind of run the meeting out on that video. So if you hang in there for that, you can watch it. I think, how long is that video, Kate?
I think it's about 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, so where's Dave Shanley? Are you there, Dave?
Unmute.
There we go.
Hello?
Yeah, you're there.
Okay. Okay.
So if you put yourself on speaker view now, then you can just look at Dave.
Okay. Okay, as everybody knows, I guess the bird count this year is on December the 19th. I was lucky enough on a normal year, I'd have maybe between 35 and 40 people, I guess, take part. I would divide our section up into about 10 areas and have maybe, 3 to 4 people per area. Of course, this year that can't happen that way. But I was lucky that I still had about the same number of people sign up. So what I did was I chopped some of those areas in half. So instead of having 10, I've actually got about 18 sections this year. So that's lets each section be covered by, I guess, less people because it's not as big an area. So that's worked out okay. So I've managed to, I guess, cover the same area as before. So I've got everybody paired up, and I have delivered most of the maps at this point in time. I think I got about 3 to go, and I guess they'll be out by this weekend. So everything so far has been going okay. It's been a little bit hectic to to get it organized, but but now it is. So what we're doing, normally we would all get together at I guess the White Marsh when it was all over. We can't do that, but the White Marsh has been I guess kind enough that I got a drop box out there. So when everyone's done their results, they're going to drop it off there. The White Marsh is open until 5 on Saturday. So that would give me a chance to get the results that way. So that's been good. I don't really know what else to say here other than the fact that it is organized and it's coming. And if anybody has some questions, basically our I guess area is I guess the same size circle as everyone else has. It's a 15-mile radius circle, and our center is I guess Wybridge. So in doing that, that includes Wye Marsh, I guess Tiny Marsh, a lot of I guess Georgian Bay shoreline, probably as far as south as Elmvale, and as far north as about LaFontaine area, and east of the shoreline of Georgian Bay, and west almost to about Wabashine. So that's basically the circle that we have. And I know other groups this year are having trouble organizing, but I was lucky that if it was done right, our people wanted to take part, and so it's worked out well. I don't know if anyone has any questions they want to ask or other than that, but I guess just know that it's happening, and it'll be.
Sounds great, Dave, and sounds great. And as you say, you're going to have the people drop a count off to the Wye Marsh.
Yes,
You might want to keep a copy though, because I think we hope to also do a Zoom get together.
that's right. If everyone else had a copy, then that
Yeah.
means that we wouldn't have to read everybody's. Yeah, so that would be good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or then we'll just get together and see how the count went.
Yeah,
And
that's a good idea.
We're going to talk about what we can do to keep supporting the owls this year as well. We'll come up with some ideas. So that'll be our next Zoom presentation around the Christmas bird count. But we have booked a Zoom presentation for our regular third Thursday of the month in January. There's a lady from the Toronto Zoo going to come and talk to us about endangered species in the Great Lakes, fish species, I believe. But well, you'll get more of that by email. So Susan or anybody else have anything to add to the meeting?
One question
Oh.
for Dave. What's your deadline for dropping off the sightings at the Marsh?
Open from 9 to 5 on Saturdays. So I'll probably go out there about 4:30, to pick the box up. And I will
Okay.
probably stay till 5, just when they're all set to, I guess, close down. So as long as
Okay.
it's there by 5, then
And I think by 4 or 4:30 it gets pretty dark. So unless you're
Yeah.
really hoping to get an owl.
yeah, I'm sure everyone will be done too, because of the fact that the areas, aren't as big this year.
Yeah.
So, hopefully it works out well for everyone.
Sounds good. Dave, I sent you an email about getting the map to me,
Yes.
so you can
Yes.
you can let me know. Okay,
I will
Wonderful.
probably drop yours off Saturday, Susan, if that's all right.
that's fine. Yep, in the mailbox.
Thank you.
Thanks,
And-
Dave. Thank you
and-
for organizing all that.
And the same with Kate.
Absolutely.
I will probably drop hers off Saturday as well.
Okay,
Okay, with that, I'm gonna say goodnight to everybody, but I'm gonna share my screen now and start to play this butterfly video. And that'll kind of wrap up the meeting. It's about a 5-minute video. Let's see if that works for me here. Here we go.
sounds good.
So good night, everybody.
All right,
Good
thanks,
night.
Kate.
Bye.
Thanks, Ben.
Weeks. Just one more thing. I wanted to stop the recording on this. Give me a second to find where I am.